Hola, Theros. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another live stream, second one. It's the first edition of the Ammo Check, which is a show where we kind of talk all things Arsenal. I used to do this one as a pre-recorded video, but I decided it's probably best to do live, so we can talk to the community. We can talk to Big Up AJ. We can talk to pretty much everybody about Arsenal. You know, when you do pre-recorded videos, it's kind of hard to get comments. You know, 'cause people have to actually sit there and listen to the whole thing. You don't actually get that experience of talking. So yeah, the ammo check. And I'm gassed, man. I'm gassed. The dopamine is high. I mean, we just won 4-0 against Wigan. It's what we expected. With the ammo check, I'm going to start with the positives. I'm going to start with the positives. When I do, my videos, when I do my live streams, I always think about it as kind of, in a medical sense where, your doctor doesn't come into the room with the best thing you did first. They always come in, what's the worst problem? Let's fix that and then work our way back. And yeah, that's kind of what I want to do with the channel. So I will start with the game itself, just an overall view. I mean, what I asked for was rotation, and that's what I got. I got rotation. I mean, we got Ezra scoring 2 goals, which is something else that people asked for. Jesus on the score sheet. Even Madueke pitched in with a goal. But with me, I think you always have to take the good and the bad. And let's be honest, it's Wigan. I think they're 22nd in League One. They're fighting for their relegation lives. They'll probably be in League Two next year. And as the number 1 team currently in the Prem, I expect to just roll them over. I don't expect it to be a hard task, even if we put in the backups, even if we rotate. I don't expect us to have a tough time against Wigan. For some reason, I don't know, man. For some reason, Wigan came out and I don't know if they just didn't watch Arsenal or, part of me feels like if you're fighting relegation and it's not like, the Prem where if you get relegated, you get this big blanket, payment, your club stays afoot. I think for the lower leagues, relegation is a big thing. It's a big thing. And living in Southampton, you look at Eastleigh. Eastleigh have been non-league for a while. They've been good. They've been so close, to getting into league football. And it's hard. It's hard once you get out, into League Two to get back to League One, to get back to, Wrexham are an anomaly. Wrexham are just a team. You can't really explain it. Going from non-league to championship and now, on the verge of championship playoff, like it's not something that's usually done. So with Wigan, it's kind of, to me, it almost feels like, did we kind of go at Arsenal and hope that we do get pammed and we're out of this competition, one less competition for us to worry about, and we can focus on our League One lives. That's kind of why, because there's no other reason why Wigan would come to the Emirates and play open, expansive football against the best team in in the Prem. You would think that they would do what most teams do. And they did a little bit of it in the second half, but by then it was already too late. You sit behind the ball, you just let us have possession, and we'll do what we did in the second half, huff and puff and not really do anything. And part of me thinks that, I don't know. I don't know what Wigan thought they would, but great performance for us. Eberechi Eze, is a guy who's polarizing. You know what I'm saying? He's kind of split the fan. I feel like there are a lot of players who split the fan. Eze is one of them. I was gassed when Eze signed because I saw him at Palace. But speaking to Palace fans, and they'll say, Eze is a moments player. He's a guy who some matches he'll be there, some matches he'll go missing. He's not going to be like a Declan Rice where you get 8 out of 10 performances every time he touches the pitch. So to see him have 2 assists, and they were great assists as well. Long assists, and it's something that I mentioned, in my local group chat that, I feel like Mikel Arteta is he's very about control when it comes to how we play. And those long passes, those kind of dangerous passes, are ones that you don't normally see. And it could be because it's League One, they open up a little bit, but it's not something we typically see from and he won't actually get that space. When we play Wolves, when we play Spuds at the end, like he won't get that amount of space, he won't get that amount of time. And ultimately I think our manager will revert back to being sure with the ball, making the high percentage passes and whatnot. But I think that ultimately it was a good performance by Eza. As I said, Jesus got in the spreadsheet. I'm more amazed with Nani Madueke getting on the spreadsheet, to be fair, because there's a running joke that he can do everything for 2/3 of the pitch, and then that final third he just kind of forgets he's a footballer. It's the same thing that Martinelli has half the time. But yeah, it's as far as Wigan, I'm gassed because I love the FA Cup. And AJ's in the chat and he says I want the FA Cup this season, no question, and I agree. And it's the same thing with the Carabao Cup. People are just like, oh, it's the Carabao Cup, oh, it's the FA Cup. For me, being an Arsenal fan only for a decade, that's the only trophy I know. Like my best memory of being an Arsenal fan, my best earliest memory is watching us win the FA Cup. Watching us win the FA Cup at Wembley, watching us win it during COVID. Like, I've seen how that lifts us. And it sucks because I've been in this country 7 years and haven't been able to get to a parade because of COVID. So, I'm not one who's going to poo-poo the FA Cup, because if we win the Carabao Cup, we win the FA Cup, I will be there. I will be there celebrating like we just won the league. So, the FA Cup means a lot to me, as I said, because it's the only, watching guys like Alexis Sanchez playing the FA Cup, watching Aubameyang win the FA Cup, it means a lot to me. And I'm never going to be like, we poo-poo the FA Cup. I'm just always like, I want to win it. I want to win every competition we're in. So, yeah, that's how I feel. Let me go through some of the comments. The American brother, big up. Ironically, the only club with the balls to come out play against us in the last few months was Wigan. Yeah, and they showed why it's not a good idea. Because, yeah, but yeah, if a team plays us, and that's the thing, and that's why I separate how we do in the cups and how we do in the league. Because in the cups, teams will come play us. Your smaller teams, they got nothing to lose, man. You look at Crystal Palace, they won their first trophy in their history. And AJ, you asked them a question that I'm going to get to, because it was asked in the group chat, and I want to get to it about the Arteta thing, but I'll work my way there. But as smaller teams will go into the FA Cup and they will actually try to win it. They will try to take a big. We saw it with Grimsby. We've seen it with some of we've seen it with some of the smaller teams that come to the big teams and they have nothing to lose. If Grimsby is a good example. If we beat the Manchester United, if we go there, or we're at home and we beat them, it doesn't matter if we win the FA Cup. Like that's history being made. And for them, they'll come out, as I said, nothing to lose, especially if their place in their respective league is already settled. If you're mid-table in League One or you're mid-table in the Championship, you're not going down, you're not making the Prem. Take the FA Cup. And I think that's the beauty of the Cup, that any team can get a leg up, any team can beat any other team, and you're not too big. You're never too big a club to lose. And that's the joy of it. So, as far as the FA Cup, yeah, I'm gassed with it. I'm over the moon with it. I'm glad we won. And as AJ is saying, yeah, we definitely need the cup. I would love to win the cup. I would love to win the cup. I would love to feel how it feels to just get there and get over the mountaintop and have a trophy parade, to be honest. So, and that leads me into the next question, because this was a question that was asked in the group chat, and I'm going to cover it because it's been making the rounds a little bit. And the question was, if Mikel Arteta wins the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup double, but doesn't win the league, or the Champions League, would you still sack him? Is that a good season? Now, I think that's a two-part question, right? I'll start with the is it a good season before I start with the sack bit. As far as is it a good season? If we win a trophy, for me, it's a good season. And it's something that we said about Spuds. Everybody's like, oh, would you have taken Tottenham season versus our season? And some people will say, oh, it felt good. We finished second, but ultimately we didn't win anything. And some other people will say finishing 17 but winning a trophy, it's not great. If you gave me a one-off season, you said you'll finish 17 but win the Champions League, or you'll take finishing second, and that next season you're back to what we have now, I take 17th in the Champions League. I think any Arsenal fan would, because you don't get relegated and you win a big trophy. So if he wins the double, I'd be excited, man. The commentators were saying, we haven't made it past the 5th round of the FA Cup in 6 years. We haven't won the Carabao Cup, the League Cup. I think back then it was called the Coca-Cola Cup, since I was born, 1993. I am 33 years old, and we haven't won that trophy. So, yeah, if he wins that trophy, and would I think that it was successful, is a successful season? I would think it's a successful season. Do I think that it's good enough? Those are two different things. Now, I think that a lot of people talk about Arsenal in a vacuum. A lot of people talk about Arsenal, if we win this, every trophy is good. Not every team can win. But your standards changed based on your trajectory, right? Let's take, I don't know, let's take anybody, for example. Let's take Villa. I'll take Villa. Villa are a relatively big club as far as kind of a following. They've got a decent stadium. They've got a decent fan base. So let's say that Villa, right? Take Arsenal out the equation. Let's say that Villa top 4. They make top 4. Now let's say that Villa win the Premier League, and then the next year they win the Champions League, and then the next year they compete, they don't win. Then the next year they win the Premier League again. From that point, right? Once you've reached the pinnacle, once you've reached the mountaintop, your standards change. Like the measuring stick that you have changes. When Man City were a mid-table club and they won the FA Cup, that was great for them because that was their level. But now that they have won the treble, they've been the Centurions. They've been, they've had the most points. They've won 4 in a row. Their standard as a fan base changes because this is what they expect now. This is what they expect. This is what they hope for. This is how we've become. And it's the same thing with teams like Real Madrid, Barcelona. You think Real Madrid was the biggest team? And the funny thing, if you look at history, there was once upon a time where Manchester United weren't the biggest team in England. There was once upon a time Arsenal was the biggest team in England. There was once upon a time Liverpool was the biggest team in England. Now Arsenal third biggest team. Why? Why are we the third biggest team in England now? Well, because Manchester United won everything. They won the treble. Manchester City won the treble. Liverpool, they've got the most, Premier Leagues. They've got the most Champions Leagues. Like that's how you feel. That's how your standards change. Now you look at Manchester City, as I said, if they don't win anything this year, they win nothing. Pep's in trouble. Like they can like Pep as much as they want, but the owners, the family, they won't be happy with not winning anything, especially with how much money Manchester City has spent. Same thing with Liverpool. Liverpool won the league last year, and now they're talking about getting rid of Slot. I've got a Liverpool mate, man. He's talking about he wants him out. I mean, I would win the league last season. Doesn't matter how ugly it was. I would have taken that. But because they know what they have, because they know that they're the top team, they're the joint top team in England. They have a pedigree of winning in Europe. They have a pedigree of winning here. They know that the standards have changed. And the thing with Arsenal fans is we just allow ourselves to compete. It's like Arsenal act like we've never been here before. We're the only team that's ever gone an entire season unbeaten, besides Preston North in the Stone Ages. But in the Premier League era, only team that has gone an entire Premier League season unbeaten. From then, your standards change, and I always use American football because that's what I know, and that's how I kind of equate things. The Miami Dolphins, we're the only team in the NFL history to go undefeated, win the Super Bowl. And guess what? Every year we're disappointed because we've never made it back to the Super Bowl. We after that last Dan Marino, I think 1984, 82, 84, we've never made it back to the Super Bowl. So every year you watch your rivals. I've watched the Patriots win 5, 6 Super Bowls. I've watched Tampa Bay win Super Bowls. I've watched, the Buffalo Bills win a division. And the thing remains the same. I don't argue with other Miami Dolphins fans about why Miami aren't winning. I argue with the board, argue with the players, and that's what it should be. That's what it should be when it comes to kind of our standards. Finishing second is not good enough. So, yeah, would winning the trophy be, winning the domestic cup double be great? Absolutely. But it's not good enough for a team with our level, especially when people are saying we got the best squad in Europe. We finished top of the Champions League. We're at the top of the Premier League table. We've now got a 4-point gap. Losing those two competitions is not good enough for Arsenal Football Club, and it shouldn't be good enough for you. And that's not the whole Arteta in thing. That's not the whole Arteta out thing. That's just how I feel about it. It's as an Arsenal. I'm an Arsenal fan, first and foremost. That's how I feel about everything. The Mikel Arteta thing, I will answer in a minute. Let me get some of these comments as well because I want to keep up. So, let's go. AJ's been rampant in the chat. Hold on. I'm still new to this. Gooner Rican TV, can I please make the point of Arsenal women? Renee Sleggers has won 2 major trophies in 16 months in the job. She doesn't win anything for 2 seasons. Exactly. And I will not lie to you. I will not sit here and lie to you guys. Third season, I was like, why did we sack Unai Emery? It's third season of Mikel. Why did we sack Unai Emery for finishing 5th, making it to a final, and keep this guy in a managerial position, and we finish 5th again? Like, why did we sack a guy, get a new guy who's never managed before, and in the same position? That's what I couldn't understand with Mikel Arteta. Why did we? And then second happened, and I was like, all right, we're on it. All right, I was wrong. There we go, we're on it. And we lost, and I was like, fine. 22-23, fine. We shouldn't have been here. We punched above our weight. And then 23-24 happens, and I'm like, this is it. We've learned. Except we didn't. We didn't win. And then, 24-25 happens. And it was just frustration. Anybody who knows me, I spent the whole season, I was grumpy the entire season. Because the league, if you saying last year wasn't good, this year ain't really that much better. But every time Liverpool would drop points, I'm like, this is our chance. We can catch them. And we just didn't. We just lose the teams. And everybody blamed the injuries. And everybody blamed the weather, the ball, the referees, the glare of the sun. No one blamed the manager, though. So we get back to it this season, and we see the same thing happening again. And then fans say, why are you negative? Why aren't you just along for the ride? If I'm being bullied for 6 years, and then my bully comes up to me in my 7th year, says, you know what, I'm not bullying you anymore, and he jumps and he flinches, I'm going to flinch because you've been beating me up for 7 years. So sitting there and saying, oh, it's different this time. What evidence do you have that it's different? I have evidence to prove that why we didn't make it. Our attack is not great. As much as we are winning games, our attack isn't firing. It fired last night, but it fired against the League One side. And I think that's something that you also have to put into perspective, that it was a League One side. And yes, we played well, but can we do that against the Burnleys of the world? Can we do that against the Evertons of the world? Can we do that, against the West Hams and and the Brent. Well, we didn't do it against Brentford, obviously. Those teams that we should be beating. So yeah, it's great, but I don't feel like anything has changed until I actually see it. I've gotten past the point of dopamine. I've gotten past the point of, hoping. Now, on that as well, just because I sit here and I say that I'm not happy doesn't mean that on match day I'm not going to be behind my team. And I think that's the thing that people think that, people get on the internet and then when I don't want Arsenal to lose. I never predict Arsenal to lose. I go to matches. I pay my hard-earned money to go to matches. I love the club. And that doesn't have to include loving the manager, right? And I always use, every time someone says you're negative, you're not. I always use the American example. I'm American. I come from America, born in Miami, Florida. I don't like my president. I'm not a fan of his. But does that stop me from being an American? Because you don't like the president, you're not an American. Why? I was born there. I was raised there. I wear the Puerto Rican flag, the American flag. I speak English. Like, I have an American passport. I love my country. I love Miami, Florida. I love Florida. I love North Carolina. I love my country. I don't have to love my president to love my country. Those are two separate things. Yes, my president is a representative of my country, and I could disagree with his policies, but that doesn't make me less American because I don't agree with the president. And it's the same thing with Arsenal. Just because I don't agree with the manager, and I don't hate the manager, I'm not one of these people where I sulk when he does something well, or I just want him to fail to prove my agenda. No, because if he fails, we fail. I want him to learn. I want him to change his tactics. I want him to change his formations. I want him to give players a chance. I want him to rest players. That's what I want. I want him to do those things, because when he does those things, my clubs get better. We win. We get over the line. But if he can't do that, then we need to find someone that will. But when Mikel Arteta leaves, I'll still be an Arsenal fan. I loved Alexis Sanchez. The reason I became an Arsenal fan, when he went to Manchester United, did I follow him? No. I stayed at Arsenal because I'm an Arsenal fan. Loved the Aubameyang. Loved the flip. Loved everything. Loved when he won the FA Cup. When he left, did I go to Marseille? Did I go to Barcelona? Did I go, when Lacazette went to Lyon, did I go follow? No, I didn't. Because I'm an Arsenal fan. When Mikel leaves, will I go follow him to his? No, I won't, because I'm an Arsenal fan. So that's how I feel about the whole thing. So yeah, it's a moot point. AJ said there's no reason to give Arteta all these years. I think this is his last one. Honestly, we've had 116 different injuries since the start of last season that could get him sacked alone. Yeah, the injury thing is, I've been a coach, and sometimes when I talk about Mikel, I like to talk about him in the view of being a coach, like of him being a manager and me being a manager. And I know that when I was a young manager, sometimes you want to prove so badly that you can do something that you forget that the people who work for you, the people who play for you, are human beings. They have feelings. They have lives. They feel something, and you want so badly to win. And I'm not saying that this is what he's doing, but that's what it feels like to me from the outside looking in. You want so badly to prove people wrong. You've been here 6-7 years. You haven't won a big trophy, and now you're on your last leg. And whether you see the Mikel Arteta ins or the Mikel Arteta's outs, just know that there is pressure. There is definitely pressure on Mikel Arteta. Whether you can see it or not, whether they report it or not, there's pressure on Mikel Arteta. There's no manager, coach in a job who will go without winning so long and keep a job. There's none, right? I can't think of one, right? American sports is different. I think about Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin stayed at Pittsburgh, and yes, he had a great record. Yes, he kept winning, but he didn't win. He didn't get to the playoffs. He didn't win in the playoffs. He stopped, getting to the championships. He stopped winning the division. Once you do that, It's over. It doesn't matter how many great records you have. So with Mikal, there gets to be a point where it doesn't matter how many points you have in the league. You know how good you feel, how good the fans feel. You have to deliver, and I think where it changed for Mikal is when Josh took over. Just my opinion. It's conjecture. Just my opinion. When Josh took over, I think that's when everything changed for Mikal. Because I feel as though Josh is more hands on than Stan. And Stan is kind of the guy, even in the NFL, he's kind of the guy who shows up, waves his hands, let other people do it. And I think Josh is a young guy. He wants to prove that he can win. He wants to prove to his dad that he can take over the family business, which is, owning sports teams, KSC. And I think Arsenal is kind of his platform. And every time we don't win, if I'm him, I sit there and I'm like, I'm not winning, and I'm running out of opportunity to show Dad that I can have a winning franchise. I can have something that actually moves, not just makes money, but actually wins and get the fans on board. And I feel like when Josh came, and I'm a very big anti Kroenke. I don't like Kroenkes. But I think Josh came in and he's giving Mikal everything he's wanted. He's giving him the money. Edu was the problem. Get rid of Edu, get in Berta. Oh, you need signings. We have an 8-player summer window. Oh, you need this. You want to change. You win the dog. You can have win the dog. You want to change how we train. You want to change the tunnel. I'm giving you everything. Now win me something. And the more he doesn't win, and I think this season, I'll be honest, this season the FA Cup and the League Cup won't be enough. It's not enough. So yeah, I just think that he's under pressure. He's under massive pressure, and when it comes to injuries, sometimes he'll flop players. Like tonight, I mean, let's talk about the warm ups. What are we doing in the warm ups? Calafiore injured in the warm up. Saliba was injured in the warm up. I'm injured in the what's going on? What's going on in the warm ups where guys can't even make it to the field? Saka had the injury in the warm up as well. Like, to me, right? And I'm putting my coach hat back on. When a guy gets injured in the warm up, that means he's practiced hard and he's not been rested. He's not been rested. And American football is very grueling. It's a lot of running. It's a lot of hitting. And you can tell from the warm-up if a guy just needs to not play the game. If a guy needs to not play the game, you can tell from the warm-up. So, like, if you're running through your paces and he looks slow, you're like, man, he looks slow. But being completely honest, going back to being a coach, you can tell that in practice. I've sat players, I was an offense coordinator. I've sat players that were some of my best players because they were gassed, man. They weren't giving me anything. And a 50% fit player, to me, in my mind, is not better than a 100% medium player. If you're gonna play them the whole match, a half fit elite player is not better than a fully fit average player. Because guess what? Your elite player is gonna run out of steam, and then he's gonna be a nothing player. He's not gonna be a player at all. And this is where I criticize Mikal a little bit. So if I know Saka's on his last legs, if I know that Gyökeres is slow, Odegaard is slow, right? And I thought for a second that a couple games ago when those guys came off the bench, I'm like, well, maybe Mikal's learning. Maybe Mikal has rested him and saying, you know what, you're half fit. But let's see what the first half gives me. All right, 1-0, 2-0 maybe. I'll bring you guys on, see out the match. I get that. But you look at, why is Saka playing today? Do we not have any youngsters that could play? Give them a chance. It's Wigan. Why Calafiore out? And like the chat saying, I want to see MLS in big up Cooper, by the way. Thanks for stopping by. I wanted to see MLS in the midfield. I really did. I wanted to see him get an opportunity to to kind of just show us that he is a midfielder. And I think, and I said this, in my group chat, MLS is kind of like Zinchenko, except better. He's like Zinchenko with legs. Like Zinchenko, when he was doing the midfield stuff, when he was doing the inversion stuff, and he's going in the midfield, amazing. When you asked him to defend, Bambi on nice. And we saw it with MLS tonight. He was getting rinsed a couple times, but he's not a left back. He hasn't trained to be a left back. He's trained to be a midfielder. And when he does midfield things, he looks good. When he does left back things, he doesn't. Same thing with Thomas Partey. We put in our best midfielder at right back, and guess what? He was getting rinsed. It's not rocket science. I'd rather have my best midfielder in front and then put a guy from the academy who plays right back. Yeah, he's going to get cooked. But my defenders can help him. He knows what to do. He might be a little bit rash, but he knows. I mean, Gabriel was rash. Saliba was rash. They made some bozo moments in the beginning. But that's how you get a guy better. You give him the opportunity. You're telling me there's no one in the under 21s who could come in, maybe learn from Ben White while he's not fit, and take over that role. That's how, Saka got here. That's how these young guys came to the academy. That's how, what's his name? It's in my brain, Fulham. Emil Smith-Rowe. That's how these guys got here. Coming through the academy, and you have injuries, or you got guys who aren't performing. You let them up. And we were singing Saka and Emil Smith-Rowe. And AJ said in the chat, Josh Nicholas is right back, give him a chance. Why can't we allow the youngsters to play? What if Everton had never let Wayne Rooney play? What if Manchester United had never let Marcus Rashford play? We wouldn't know who they were. I think Mikel, and this is why I think Mikel is under pressure. Because when you're an under pressure coach, big up, Cooper, take it easy. When you're under pressure coach, you have to rely on the senior players. Because if you mess up, they'll blame, the young players, they'll blame the inexperience. I think he's in the corner. I think Mikel Arteta has his back into the corner. No matter how much, you make us feel good, and I get goosebumps when I hear North London Forever. I think he's under pressure. And that's what people under pressure do. You rely on the people you trust. There's a little bit of paranoia, but all in all, we're still top of the table. We're still top of the Champions League table. We're still in the FA Cup, and we're in the final. So, as of right now, he's got everything right. But you can criticize the style because bad habits turn into bad results. So if you're not scoring, yeah, it looks great now, but in the future, bad results. Let me go through the chat again. See what else we got. Actually, since we got 3 injuries against women, we are now at 119. Yeah, because I heard Ben White went out as well against Wigan, which isn't great news. Cooper said he was looking forward to seeing MLS in the midfield. So was I, bro. So was I. Calafiori's made of glass. And the one thing that I hope for Calafiori is that he doesn't turn into Tomiyasu. Because Tomiyasu, when he came in, I thought he was fantastic. But he's made of glass. And that's another worry that I have. I want to know, one, what we're doing for recovery, what we're doing for practice, and what we're doing, how are these players being assessed by the medical team? Because it doesn't make sense to me. And like I said, I've been an Arsenal fan for 10 years. So it's not just an Arteta thing. I think it's an Arsenal thing. There has to be something fundamentally wrong either with our play, with our practice pitch, or our facility. Something's not right. Because you look at Jack Wilshere, you look at guys like, Aaron Ramsey had the leg break, so I let him off. But you look at guys who typically don't get injured, then they come to Arsenal and they spend more time on the physio table than they do the pitch. What is wrong with our practice facility where players are breaking down? AJ said, I don't rate Calafiore at all, if I'm honest. I would trade him for Anthony Robinson in a heartbeat. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. We don't actually have, if you actually deep like our fullback position, we don't really have many natural fullbacks. Calafiore was playing center back. Timber was playing center back. Um, Ben White, when he played for Brighton, wasn't he a center back as well? So I just don't understand why we just don't go get the natural left and right back. I do, because our manager likes this inversion thing. The issue with inversion is eventually issue with any tactic is people watch film. People don't just sit there, play the game, and say that's it. Like, they watch film of you. They watch your tendencies. So if you continue to do the same thing, it's not hard to play against you. It's not hard to play against Arsenal. Let's be honest. How do you frustrate Arsenal? Low block, right? Get the tallest center backs and midfielders you can find, and stop them from spamming crosses. That's it. I could be Arsenal with that. Any team that sit the low block, stop them from spamming crosses, head everything away, you're going to frustrate. Eventually, we might get beat, but they're not going to beat us 5 or 6-0. Like, it's not hard. What doesn't help, our training area is built on top of a car park. Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that it was built on top of a car park. And if you know anything about car parks, that ground has to be hard, or your car starts sinking in. So yeah, if they just didn't loosen the soil up and they just built on top of a car park, yeah, especially if you're playing on 3G as well. I'd rather play on grass. I played on grass fields playing American football, and I will honestly tell you, playing on a grass field in England, I mean, when you hit the ground and you get tackled, it hurts. But playing on a grass field in England feels a lot better than getting hit on AstroTurf. For one, AstroTurf isn't very forgiving. It has a little bounce, most of them, but it's not very forgiving, and it will give you a rug burn out of this world. Whereas the ground itself, you sink into it. You might slide a little bit, but it's that natural kind of like, it still hurts, but I feel like you're less likely to break yourself because there's grass and mud and it gets soft, and you just kind of like a pillow. So if you're training on that, and a thing that a lot of people don't know, or realize, is that it's the same with running, right? When you run on the AstroTurf versus when you run, when you run on pavement, the constant hitting of your joints, causes joint stress, muscle injuries. And it also doesn't help that we don't really rotate. So you're running on a hard car park, you putting stress on your joints, you're putting stress on your muscles, and then you're playing 90 minutes when you don't really need to. I mean, it's a recipe for disaster. So, yeah, I think you got a point, AJ. I would trade Odegaard for Elliott, Anderson, and Zubimendi for Adam Wharton in a heartbeat. Zubimendi for me, right? And I don't think he's a 6. And it's another thing I don't understand about our tactics, is Declan Rice was one of the best CDMs in England. When we bought him from West, he just won the Conference League. And we've turned him into an 8. But his best attribute is running and seeking the football. Yeah, he can start everything, but his best attribute is running and seeking the football. That's his best thing. Seek and destroy. That's what Declan Rice's best thing is. And sometimes we have Zubimendi there. That's not his best attribute. For me, Zubimendi's better at an 8. And we've seen it. When Zubimendi pings some passes about, you're like, man, this guy can pass. And his goals, edge of the box, coming in late, taking it first time, that's a number 8. That's not a number 6, bro. So I don't think Zubimendi is that terrible. I just think we just, with Arteta, and the thing that annoys me is we're always trying to fit square pegs in round holes. Just let people play where they're good. If I as a layperson can see that, Declan Rice has just been solid everywhere, but I can see that Declan Rice is better at the 6, put him there. I can see Zubimendi is better at the 8, put him there. Odegaard's not a 10. I don't really know what Odegaard is, to be fair. Odegaard was a 10, but right now he's a spectator because that's the next bit I'm gonna get into in a minute is Odegaard. But and I don't want to make this sound like I'm whining or whinging, but as I said, I like to do, you know, the ammo check. I like to check the pace. You never go into battle not knowing what ammunition you got. You never go into battle not knowing how good your your things are working. You don't go into battle and you haven't tested your weaponry. You don't. And that's how I feel with Arsenal. I'm not gonna go into the rest of the season and act like it's all sunshine and rainbows when we have issues. We have issues scoring. Yeah, we scored 4 against the League One side, but we have issues scoring in the Premier League. This is not a Premier League game. When we play in Europe, we look good. We play in the FA Cup, we look good. We play in the Carabao Cup, we look good. When we play in the league, warfest, right? And that's the honest truth. I would trade Saka plus money for Elise in a heartbeat. I wanted Elise, and for some reason as well, another thing that I just have a lot of annoyances sometimes, but getting Madueke and not getting someone like Elise, it doesn't make sense to me. You know, getting Kai Havertz and not getting someone else from the Prem, Ivan Toney, for example. Those are the things that kind of annoy me about Arsenal. You've paid Chelsea 65 million for Madueke. When you've seen people like Lookman go for 35 million euro. Elise was like Bayern. Yeah, he wanted to go. Why not say, hey man, you want to come play for Arsenal? I'm pretty sure he would have. Yeah, but Jared Bowen should have been bought instead of Nani. Jared Bowen, I don't know, man. What's Jared Bowen doing now? I mean, I know West Ham are terrible, but I mean, we saw Cole Palmer look, great in a not so good Chelsea side. So I don't know. I wanted Ivan Toney as well, AJ. I thought Ivan Toney was there for the taking. I mean, he would have probably cost £20 million. He was on the verge of the England squad, and then this whole thing came out about his attitude. And with Mikel Arteta, we know, and this is not something that This is not something. This is something that I don't think that he likes people questioning his management and his leadership, and I think that's because he's a novice. You look at the greatest coaches of all time. You look at the greatest players of all time. And I like to take the Chicago Bulls for example. You've got Phil Jackson, one of the greatest coaches of all time. You think Michael Jordan wasn't a pain in the butt? You think Dennis Rodman wasn't a pain in the butt? You think Scottie Pippen wasn't a pain? You think these guys didn't have ego? Pat Riley with Showtime. Like, you think those guys? You think Magic Johnson didn't have an ego? Of course he did. Of course he did. You think the guys in the New England locker room didn't have ego? Of course they did. But guess what? The best managers deal with ego. You think there are no egos in Manchester City? You think everybody just comes in, man, oh yes, Pep. Yo, I love you, Pep. No. They don't. Haaland definitely has an ego. You can see it on his face. He's got an ego. But the best managers know how to get the best. And you look at, some of our greats. Thierry Henry, the way he talks now. Imagine when he was playing. He had an ego. Ian Wright, under George Grant, he had an ego. And I've read Tony Adams' book. And even Tony Adams at points, was hard to deal with. But guess what? The manager got the respect. The manager dealt with it. And we got rid of Aubameyang, and everybody said, oh, he was washed, and he did. There was all kind of excuses to make themselves feel good. You got rid of a Golden Boot winner and didn't replace him. I don't care, if he was showing up 30 minutes. The guy was a Golden Boot winner, right? Deal with it. If he keeps showing up 30 minutes late, tell everybody they got to be there 30 minutes early. I've done that. I know some players. I've known players go out the night before, and it annoys me to no end. And I tell them, you won't play. And they still do it. But he's my best player, and sometimes you got to play those dudes. Right? And I benched him for a quarter, and then I played him. But you know the dudes that you have. I'm not gonna sabotage myself in order to retain my ego and my control. That it doesn't make sense as a coach. And you need those guys. And I think that's the biggest problem with our attack. That's the biggest problem with our attack right now. We don't have any just how do I say it? I don't like the curse. We don't have any bastards. We don't have any just angry people that live to destroy. I don't see, and I love to use Thierry Henry as an example because he talked about when he won. Thanks AJ for the GNA as well. He talks about going to Tottenham and wanted to beat them, not going to Manchester United and wanted to beat them at all costs, like talking trash, like knowing that he was the best. I look at our attack, bro, and all I see is nice guys. You see Trossard with the, and then he gets upset every now and then. He doesn't have the talent to be, like that kind of guy. But I don't see any like attackers who are just like, it doesn't matter. Give me the ball, get out the way. I'm gonna make something happen. We don't have one. Gyökeres, if he doesn't get service, he's non-existent. Saka, he's become predictable. Go to the byline, cut in, shot, maybe do a cross. That's pretty much it. Madueke, I'm going to run like a headless chicken and run the ball out of play unless I get the perfect pass, and then I'll look very good. Martinelli, same. Martinelli, I still think is Italian. You got to show me Brazilian ancestry, bro, because there is no favelas in there. There is Gabriel Jesus got a little favelas. Gabriel Martinelli, I don't see it. Yeah, so you look at our attack, Kai Havertz, I would not, if I was a center back, right, and I'm 5'10", I look at Kai Havertz, I wouldn't be scared to mark him. Like, but if I was marking Thierry Henry, if I was marking Nicolas Anelka, even the guys that we used to have, you look at, Olivier Giroud, you look at Alexis Sanchez, Mesut Ozil, like you scared of these guys because Alexis Sanchez will pick the ball up, sprint to you, and you're wondering what happened. I can't think of a player in our attack, even Martin Odegaard, a player in our attack where they pick the ball up and the opposition is like, we're in trouble. Because nice guys just don't have that, bro. I don't feel like they have that. The best players in the world have ego. Every single Mbappe, Bellingham now at this point, Yamin Lamar, even historically, Zidane, Thierry Henry, Buffon, all these guys got ego and attitude. I don't feel that with our attack. And I'm not saying you need that to be a good attacker, but you need some oomph about you. We don't have that. We don't have that in our attack. AJ, I was saying trade Trossard for Wissa. Wissa and Buemo and even Cunha. I add Cunha to that list. These are guys that I genuinely thought we could have gotten, and we just didn't. We let them go to Manchester United, and honestly, I think if United had a manager at this moment, big up, Jagans. If they had a manager, that played like Carrick, let them be free, I think Manchester United would have been more of a problem. I think Amorim definitely scuppered that team, and his issue is the same kind of issue that I see with Mikel. These managers are married to their system instead of the players that they have in front of them, and I think Pep Guardiola is partially to blame, because Pep Guardiola is a revolutionary. He made the system, the system Man City were playing. He made it. They won the treble. They won 4 leagues in a row. So he made it into something. And because our managers come from that, because our manager has learned under that, this was my biggest problem with hiring a guy who hadn't actually managed before. Because I've been there. Personally, I've been there. Where you've learned one system, and then you go somewhere else and you think that system is the way to do it. But that system worked because you had that group of players. You had Holland. You had, well, not Holland at the time, I don't think. You had Jesus and Rodri and You had De Bruyne, and then you come to Arsenal. You don't have those players. You don't have that midfield, and you've built it. But the players that you have, we can't play like the style that we have, the striker we have. He's not a link up, drop deep, false nine type striker. He's a target man. He needs cross. He doesn't need crosses. He needs through balls. Yeah, he can get on the end of a couple crosses, but he's a through ball. He needs you to find him when he runs. That's what kind of striker we have, and we saw that tonight. Madueke makes a striker-esque run as they finds him, goal. And that's the kind of run that we need from Gyökeres and the kind of distribution we need to give to him. And how did he do that? Well, I mean, he was stuck behind Mateta, as it was. Big, burly. He's not gonna run past you like Henry. He's not gonna run past you like like Erling Haaland. But he knew where to put it in, and we just don't do that. And I think that our manager is putting square pegs in round holes. Our manager wants us to play this system that, and I felt that way 2 years ago. Like Gabriel Jesus is hurt. We got Kai Havertz, so we got Mikel Merino. Do something else. Change the system. If we're down players that can play that system, if you don't have Tierney or you don't have Calafiore and you've got to put MLS in there, why not change to a back three? You've got 3 center backs. Why not switch it up? Why not play a 4-4-2? Why not, switch up from this inversion thing, this 4-3-3? Like, why not change? But you're married to the system because that's all you know. And this is my issue. He doesn't know anything besides where he's been as a player. So Arsene Wenger, he ain't playing like that. David Moyes, who played at Everton, we know how he plays, and that's what we look like. Or Pep Guardiola. That's all he knows. He's never had to learn anything yet. And also he's never kind of had to go outside of Spain or England. So, and he's been in England for most of the time. So he's never gone to Germany. He's never gone to. Oh, apparently he did go to PSG. So I'll take that back. But I mean, not the PSG we see now. But he's never gone to these places and had to manage with the expectation. And I think that when you look at teams like Liverpool, right, and their conundrum, they want Xabi Alonso. Xabi Alonso he's played in England. He's managed in Germany. He's gone undefeated. I mean, he's gone undefeated and beat Bayern Munich, which is so hard to do. He's gone to Real Madrid, and yes, it's ugly, but Real Madrid is the most toxic job in sports. Honestly, I think Real Madrid is it the most toxic job? I would say Real Madrid, the New York Yankees, and the Lakers are probably the 3 most toxic jobs in sports. And yeah, he went there, and they didn't win as much as they thought they should have, and they sacked him. But I think he did all right. I mean, I think that club's led by Mbappe anyway. But so I can see where now Liverpool fans were like, maybe you could bring him in. We've seen what he's done in other leagues. We never seen Mikel Arteta do anything in another league. And I think that's part of the detriment. He's never had to experience anything else except winning with City as a manager or an assistant coach, and these title challenges. He's never had to deal with anything else. And I haven't been proven thus far that he can come out of that. And a lot of people are saying back him, he'll get us over the line. But what showed you that? What makes you believe that he can get over the line this time? What is it? Just hope? And as I said in my analogy, I don't have to love my president to love my country. I don't have to love my manager to love my club. But I just don't understand where people are going with this blind faith in the manager. I can't do it. I need to be proven. The first couple years I was all right. I trusted in it, and now I want to win. So, yep. But back in the comments, and we got 9 likes. Thank you everyone for stopping by and liking. And talking to me. I appreciate it. The last bit I want to talk about, because it's in the thumbnail as well, is the captain, the captaincy. I've heard a lot from Tony Adams and Martin Keown and Patrick Vieira, and they talk about the captaincy. And I've had a lot of thoughts on the captaincy, having been captain myself of various clubs, and I get where people are coming from. So the captaincy is twofold. Um, the captaincy is twofold. Like I said, I'm in my early 30s, and when I was growing up, in the 90s and early 2000s, captains were you were basically second in command at your club. You were the club captain. It was the head coach, the club captain, everybody else. Yeah, you had your assistant coaches, but when it came to the club, your club captain was everything. And the way that you captained was different as well. Like, and I, as I said, I read Tony Adams' book, and back then you could shout and tell players, AJ, I see that comment, and I'm gonna talk about that in a minute as well, because I spoke about that in one of my live streams. But in the 90s, you can captain, you can yell at somebody, get in someone's face, and say, you need to fix up, you need to do this, you need to be that. Like, I could just get in someone's face and tell them they need to be better. And now, in this kind of society we live in, kids aren't really exposed to sports. They're not really exposed to that kind of tough, how do you say, tough love type coaching. And I think that as a captain these days, you can be like that. You've got to be a little bit softer. But I think a lot of captains now lead by example. I think now the captaincies are leading by example. Big up to SBO. Look like Manchester City fan. It's diabolical. Wow. Anyway, Wolves 2-1 Arsenal. Tottenham Hotspur 5-2 Arsenal. Manchester City 4-1 Arsenal. I hope those are your predictions, and I hope they're wrong. But I'll get onto that in a minute, because I look forward. But yeah, as far as kind of the captaincy, captaining back then was a lot more rah-rah in your face, and now it's a lot more leading by example. The problem that I have with Martin Odegaard at the moment is he's not leading by example either. So not only are you not, like, if I'm looking at, and I can get where Tony Adams is coming from. If I look at Martin Odegaard, I just don't see him as my captain. I wouldn't see him as, I'd see him as one of the best players. And the same thing with Bukayo Saka. Like, Saka, bro, I look older than you. Like, how am I going to listen to you, on the pitch? So it's just hard for me, when I look at that. And I get where Tony Adams is coming from. Because, as I said, I've only started supporting Arsenal for 10 years. But even Koscielny, regardless of what we think about him, he was a leader. He led us. He had some bozo moments, but he was our leader. Per Mertesacker, when he had to step in, those guys led us. I wouldn't like, as much as I like Alexis Sanchez, I wouldn't want him as a captain. I wouldn't want Mesut Ozil as a captain. Because those guys are my flair players. Those guys don't need, and the captaincy comes with a burden. And this is why I think in football you should probably give it to your defensive midfielders, your goalkeeper, or your defenders. Because the captaincy comes with a burden. The captaincy, you don't have to just be the best player. You have to be who people look at when things go wrong. And I think that's where Tony Adams was right. Yeah, he was a defender. But when things were shaky, you could look at the rock at the back and say, guess what? We got Big Tone back there. So if we lose the ball, he'll get it back for us. We're not going to concede, so let's go forward and let's bomb forward and win. And I think if you're a captain and you're an attacking player, and I think that you see it sometimes with Odegaard, you see it sometimes with Saka, you're just trying too hard because I'm the captain and I have to make things happen. And I think it limits you as an attacking player because you've got the armband, and the armband is heavy. It's heavy. Being a captain is heavy. I was a captain. If you know anything about American football, I was a defensive captain. I played defensive tackle. Not the most glamorous, position. You're in the trenches. You're getting beat up. You're getting mushed to the floor sometimes. You're doing the mushing. But when we were down and out, my players looked to me and said, I know Mickey will give everything. So let me give everything. And you look at Odegaard sometimes, and Aston Villa where he's jumping around. Like, how can you sit there as a captain and watch the ball from around and not throw your body in? Not give everything for the club. Because you don't know those 3 points, those 3 points you drop could be the difference between winning the title or not. You don't know that. So when you see your captain and all he's doing is leading the press and he's going U-shaped football and he's going left. You've made a run and he sees you and he goes sideways and backwards. Right? Why would I keep listening to you? Like you're not leading me. Like you don't trust me. And I think that when it comes to the captaincy, I think you just need to take the pressure. And I think Tony Adams kind of clarified his statements. And he said the same thing. He said, I think that taking the armband off of Odegaard would release him. And I think it would. Give it to Declan Rice. Declan Rice has been a captain. He's led his team to silverware. And he's going to do the dirty work. And we've seen it. We've seen Declan Rice time and time again when we need something. I mean, not as much this year because I think he's just gassed. But last season, Real Madrid game, we needed something. We needed magic. Did Odegaard step up? Did any of these other guys step up? No. Did Saka step up? Declan Rice stepped up, and the coach is yelling at him, cross it in, cross it in, cross it in. And he says, nah, man, I think I can make this. Odegaard's telling him, the coach telling you cross it in. And this is why, Bukayo Saka as well, he says, do what you feel. Do what you feel, bro. And Declan Rice took it, because if Declan Rice misses those Real Madrid free kicks, and, we lose, let's say Mbappe gets over, we lose this, it's on him. Everybody in the paper, and British papers can be diabolical. Everybody's in the paper saying Rice missed, everybody's taking it out of Arsenal. But he stepped up, he was the man and said, win or lose, I'm going to take this on my shoulder. Our captain didn't do that. And I don't like our captain taking free kicks anyway, because he can never make it past the wall. But Declan Rice did that. When we needed goals last season, ultimately we didn't come up to anything. I know Gabriel's come from the back post and scored headers. He's put his body on the line for us to win. Like, can we name times when Martin Odegaard's done that? Where he's just left everything out there. He's had shots and they've been missed. And he scored a couple goals. I find it hard to name a couple. And I think that's the difference. That's the difference with our captaincy. Yeah, he's a good player. And I don't want, people say Martin Odegaard's trash. I don't think he's trash. I don't think he's terrible. But I think that captaincy and the expectation of being the Arsenal captain. This isn't, like I said, this isn't Grimsby. This isn't Burnley. The Arsenal captaincy has weight. You see guys, you see Patrick Vieira. You see Tony Adams' statue. You see these guys. Even Thierry Henry, he captained at one point. You see these guys' statues. That's hefty, bro. It's a hefty weight to wear. So sitting there and you're not performing, you're out of favor, you're out of form. Well, you're not out of favor because he's always going to play. You're out of form. It's a lot, bro. The weight is a lot from the captaincy. And I think sometimes you just need to step back and say, you know what? And AJ put it in there about the ladies. And I think that I was reading something. What do you say? Arsenal women have two real captains as well, in Kim Little and Leah Williamson. Odegaard can never lead like them. And Leah Williamson, I think, is a good example. And I use this, in my last live. Leah Williamson was the captain. I remember her being the captain. Um, you know, England leader and captain as well. And she just got to a point where she said, I'm not fit to be the captain anymore. I'm not best to lead anymore. And she gave the armband over. But every time they lift the trophy, you see Leah Williamson. Because Leah Williamson is a leader. But I think it takes a bigger leader to say, you know what? I can't handle this anymore. I love this club. I love leading. But I'm off my game and I'm not what the team need right now. And I think that if Martin Odegaard loved the club as he says he does, if Mikel Arteta loved the club as he says he does, I think the best thing to do and you don't have to be rude about it. You know, I've taken captaincy off of people as well. You don't have to make it a big thing. You just say, hey, this week, you know, or you know, going forward, Gabriel, Declan Rice will be our captain. Declan Rice will be our captain. You know, I've made that decision because he's still a leader on the pitch. I've made that decision just to give him time to think about being the best player he can be, and to take that off of him. And you're not embarrassing the player. You're listening. You're putting his welfare first. There's a way to take the captaincy off of somebody. You know how they did Aubameyang when they took the captaincy off of him. I thought it was hella rude. Yeah, you're late, bro, but I mean, you shouldn't have. First off, Aubameyang shouldn't have been the captain anyway. Let's just start there. But you know, just the way it was reported and everything. You know, even if he was late, even if he had something wrong, that's not how you do it, in my opinion. And you don't have to embarrass the player to put them in a position to succeed and take the captaincy off. And that's just my opinion. Let's get back into the comments. Tony Adams was drunk exile doing. Oh, it moved. That's the thing with these comments. I was a drunk exile doing whatever he did best. Never forget that. And I read his book. I read Addicted, and you know he had a monster. You know he had a monster on his back. He had a dark cloud over him, and he was still doing the best we've ever seen for Arsenal. And you know, as a person who didn't watch Arsenal then, you know I've had to go back and watch. You know Tony Adams and that team. Firstly, because they won things, and I still haven't seen us win the league yet. But just to get flavor of the clubs, I like to know. And you see Tony Adams, and this guy is imperious, man. He is just everywhere. He's a solid rock. And then you read his book, and you're like, and I know people like that, man. I know that people like that in life. I know people that work their jobs, and they're doing such a great job. They're everything, and inside they're dying, man. They've got an addiction. They've got mental health issues, and it's tough, man. It's tough. And one thing I will say too, you know, people sometimes say, you know, oh, these guys are making millions, so they should get over it. Yeah, but mental health doesn't work that way, man. Mental health doesn't care about money. Mental health doesn't care about status. It doesn't care about location. You know, anybody, you could be the richest person on the world and still have mental health issues. I think at some point, if you're having a tough time, sometimes you got to look there and say, I'm having a tough time. I need help. And as a coach, as a manager, you know, if I'm Mikel Arteta and I'm looking at Martin Odegaard and I'm looking at, you know, Bukayo Saka, I'm looking at some guys who just, you know, even this year's signings, I'm looking at Madueke, I'm looking at Victor Gyökeres, and they're not scoring. They're not in good form. You know, they're getting booed. They're getting this. They're getting that. Kai Havertz, they're getting booed. Like, sometimes you just have to take dudes out of the firing line and allow them to work their way into success. And, you know, like I said, I can't say that Martin Odegaard is a terrible player. Because 22-23, he was player of the season. He was cooking. He was cooking. But somewhere between 23-24 and now, he's lost something. I don't know whether it's the stress of being a dad, his injury, his shoulder injury, his hamstring injury. I don't know what it is. But as a manager, you have to, even if he's your captain, you have to help that guy. You have to help turn him back into that. There's a player there somewhere. I think his legs are kind of gone, but there's a player somewhere in there, and you have to kind of put your arms around the guy and say, "Listen, you're a leader. I know you're a leader, but let me take some of this pressure off of you. Let me help you out. Let me help you be the best player." And I don't feel like Mikel Arteta is doing that, and that's just me. Um, let's see. Um, we got a City fan in here. No, you're Arsenal fan. We just need to accept your fate. Arsenal will take second place at Premier League season in the season. Yeah, and you have every right, SBO, to feel that way. Man City have the last 5 years. They won what, 4 of the last 5. So they've had an off season, and even though they're having what's not a consistent season, you're only 4 points behind. You have every right to feel that way because you've seen your team claw back victory from the jaws of defeat. You've seen your team crawl back an 8-point lead. You've seen your team be Centurions and win the treble. So I get where the chest is coming from. My chest only comes from hope. I'm hoping we can do it. I'm hoping we can get over the line. Say, SPO, hey, if it happened, Arteta sack, so I don't mind. And that's another thing, man. Like I said, I can't wish on Arsenal to lose. I just can't because I love the club. I mean, I got a closet full of Arsenal merch. I go to the matches. Even when I'm on holiday, much to my wife's chagrin, I'm always looking at something Arsenal. I love the club, and I don't want us to lose. I don't hate the manager more than I love the club. So if he wins, I'm gonna celebrate. I'm gonna have a good time. Do I think that we should give him another 5-year contract for winning? No, I think you should prove that it's consistent. He's still got 2 years left on his contract. I give him maybe a 2-year extension and prove you're consistent. But I'm not giving him a lifetime contract. Now, that being said, if Mikel Arteta somehow wins the Champions League, right? Get that man a trophy. He can stay as long as he likes. 10-year contract, right? Because none of our managers were able to do it. AJ, take it easy, right? None of our managers can do it, right? If he wins the Champions League, none of the other managers in our history have done it. Get that man a 10-year contract. I'll deal with Pulis football because I'll still be. It's the only thing that rival fans have over us. Oh, you've never won the big one in Europe. He wins the Champions League. Give him the keys to the Emirates. I'm shameless. But if he doesn't, and he wins the Prem, give him a couple more years. Let's see if we can win the Champions League. Let's see if we can retain the title. But yeah, the double is not good enough for me. AJ says Kieran Tierney should still be here and be our captain. I like Tierney, man, but once again, we're going back to the same thing: injuries. Kieran Tierney, Tamiyasu, those guys were great, but they could never stay off the physio table. And then when Kieran Tierney got fit, we shipped them off, man. And I honestly think we probably could have used him this season. Giving him a 1-year contract and used him at left back, against the low blocks and actually had us, said this inverted thing, playing actual fullbacks. Yeah. I think we could have kept Tierney, but there's no point in crying over spilled milk, man. He's a Celtic player. It sucks. But yeah. Odegaard is a Spurs level player, simple as that. I think that's a little bit harsh, man. I think Odegaard is better than Spurs level. I just think his confidence is gone, man. I think his confidence is gone. His fitness is gone, and he's just not. He's not. Odegaard to me is like Ozil. He's never like Ozil. The good thing that Arsene Wenger did is he never put Ozil in a position where he had to defend or really do much kind of physical work. he put Ozil in place to create. And I think if we're gonna have Martin Odegaard somewhere, that's where he's got to be. Odegaard leading the press, that's great, but I don't trust that Odegaard is gonna go into the midfield and bully anyone. Like I'm taking Bruno Guimaraes over Odegaard if you're in a one-on-one. Like I'm taking some of Aston Villa's midfield, like Morgan Rogers over. Like I just not. I don't think Odegaard is that strong, midfielder. But I also think that we have to put him in a position, that puts him in a position that allows him to be the player that he is. And he can be a creator. He can be the person to, lead us in the final third. But we have to put him in a position to be there. AJ's not having it. AJ's not having it. He could win the quad, sack him over injuries. If he wins the quad, he got to stay. Much to a lot of the negative people. If Mikel Arteta was to win the quad, that's it. He's proven it. He's proven it. But what I will say on that is I don't like when people are like, oh, if he wins a quad, you can't celebrate. Why? I'm an Arsenal fan. Why can't I celebrate? Well, because you didn't believe he could do it. Well, he didn't show me he could do it. Like, what is there to believe? You're telling me that I should ignore 6 seasons or 6 years of not winning anything, 6 seasons of falling short. We fell short of top 4. We fell short of the title 3 times. I should ignore how I feel about those seasons, the evidence that I have, and just blindly say Mikel Arteta is our savior. No, that's not how it works, man. That's not how it works, and that's not how anyone should work, right? Because if you believe anything somebody tells you, then you're gonna get Ponzi scheme. You're gonna get taken. I'm from Miami. Like, I only believe what I can see, and what I've seen is we don't have what it takes to get over the line at the moment. Now, if he shows me that he can do it, my feelings will change, because I'm not Two-Face from Batman. I'm not, a double-sided coin. I'm a person. And my feelings on Mikel Arteta are subject to change. They are subject to being proven wrong. Right at this moment, do I feel like Mikel Arteta is the person to take us over the line? No, and I have evidence to prove that as of right now, he's not. But if Mikel Arteta does take us over the line, will I still be like, I don't think he's great? No, because he's proven it. He's shown us that he can be great. Will I still be annoyed that we have so many injuries? And do I think it's sustainable? I can't say. But if he delivers a trophy, you cannot say that he's not proven that he can win something. Now you have to keep winning something. Because if you win one, yeah, it's great. It's great but if you don't and you slide back into 5th, 6th place, then was it really, were you really a winner, or did you get lucky that one time? If Pep Guardiola just won one, and it's kind of like, Manuel Pellegrini at City. Yeah, he won the league, but was he the guy? When he started sliding back, they said, nah, we getting Pep in. And I feel like Arsenal are the club that we're close. Liverpool did it. Brendan Rodgers had them punching above their weight. They were a few moments from winning the title. Not just the Gerrard slip. They were, they lost a couple matches they probably should have won. But that attack with Daniel Sturridge, and you had Luis Suarez, like, that attack, they should have won the league, but they didn't. And guess what they did? They got rid of Brendan Rodgers. They brought in Klopp. They won everything. And I think that with Arsenal fans and our manager, I think that some of that is fear. Some of it is fear that if we sack Mikel Arteta, we'll go back to top 4. We'll go back to the dark days of not competing. but you don't know that. You could, and it's a valid point, because you could go the Liverpool way, where we get a new manager in and we win the lot, or you could go the opposite way, where Manchester United, for example, you get rid of a good manager, you get in David Moyes, you get in Ten Hag and Amorim, and yeah, you win a couple trophies, but it's a disaster. So yeah, it's valid. It's valid. But I don't like not trying. I don't like sticking with the same thing, because that's insanity. Insanity is sticking with the same thing again and again and expecting different results. And yeah, if you continue to do that, you never succeed. You never, you. They always say you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and I don't think that Arsenal are going to fail. If we get rid of Mikel Arteta, I don't think we'll go into administration. Will we? May we have some tough times? Maybe so. But even in my 10 years of being an Arsenal fan, we've never finished lower than eighth. I've never seen Arsenal finish in the bottom half of the table. Excuse me. Drink some water. I've never seen us finish 10th. I've seen Spurs finish the bottom half of the table. I've seen Man United finish bottom half of the table. Even in our darkest days, when people said the Arteta outs, not the Arteta outs, the Wenger outs, the Unai Emery debacle, we were still finishing top half of the table. So do I think that if we get rid of Mikel Arteta, do I think that we'll go 17? I don't, because I think we're a decently run club. I think we have a good fan base. I think we have a good squad. I think we have a good sporting director. The only thing that I think is not that great is our medical team, because something wrong with them. But as far as our backroom staff, I think we have everything that it takes to be a top club. But if we keep finishing second and we keep not winning, the one constant is the manager. He's the one constant. He's the only thing that's left from the top half of the. We've gotten rid of the board members. We've gotten rid of the academy guys. We've gotten rid of the sporting director. The only person left is the manager. So if we don't make it this time, there's no one else to blame. There's no one else to blame except for the manager. So I don't want fans to be scared of the future, because we don't know what's going to happen. But sticking with a guy who has consistently shown us that he can't get over the line, where's it coming from? Where's the hope and the belief coming from? I go based on what I can see. And the last little bit I want to talk about, and it's on that vein. All my rants kind of just flow into one another, but fans. I want to talk about fans. This is the last bit, because it's the first show, but I want to talk everything on my mind about Arsenal. I don't like when fans tell other fans how to fan. It's one of the things that, and I want to say it's in British sport, because I don't know if it's just me, but I don't really see it in American sport. I've never seen or been a part of a fan base where fans will blame other fans for what the team is doing. And I'm a Miami Dolphins fan. We are the worst team. We're almost Browns bad historically. And I go in forums, and it's never these fans who want the manager out, the head coach out. These fans who want new members. You guys are the reason why the Dolphins suck. It's never that. It's always, why did the Dolphins suck? Our head coach ain't good. Why did the Dolphins suck? Our GM, which is the sporting director, he ain't good. Why did the Dolphins suck? Our owner is prioritizing money instead of the on-field product. I've never been a part of a fan base where people are blaming other fans for the club being trash, bro. And I don't think we're trash, but I'm not going to fan the same way you fan. Like, I'm not going. And like I just explained, I can't sit here and act like everything's roses and daisies when I have 5, 6 years of evidence that it's not going to work. At some point, everybody becomes a pessimist. It might just be that you've come later. It might just be that you choose to see the greatness in everything, and that's your prerogative, right? You do not see me going into anyone else's chat, especially the positives ones, and saying, "You're the reason why this is happening. You're the reason Odegaard gets pushed off the ball. You're the reason we drew at Brentford." I don't understand it. I don't understand fans telling me how to fan. I don't have to be positive. I don't, and as I said before, I don't have to like the manager. He's not my dad. He's not my cousin. He's not my family member. He's an employee that works for my club. I don't have to like him. But I also don't have to have the viewpoints that you have. I don't have to look at the football and think that everything's great because we're winning. You can play terrible football. You can play terrible sport. I've seen terrible basketball teams play terrible basketball, still win. I've seen terrible American football teams win. I watched a team, my team, the Miami Dolphins. We were 1-15, losing every game. Guess what? We won one. I've seen it. I've seen people play bad and still somehow get the win. Big up to BBK for coming into the chat. I've seen a lot of sport. I've consumed a lot of sport. And, the new debate now is Arsenal playing beautiful football. Two things can be true. Arsenal can be playing boring crap football, but still getting results. And I think there's a difference between playing good football and playing effective football. And right now, Arsenal playing effective football. That's what we're playing. We're playing effective football. It's not pretty. You're not going to write home about it, but you keep getting points. That's effective. But stylistically, how we're scoring goals, is that good football? No, it's not. It's not good football. When own goal scored another one tonight, everyone. I mean, own goals is up there for Golden Boot in Arsenal Football Club. And everyone, people will say, "Oh, you have to get a shot on target for it to be an own goal." Yeah, that's why it's effective. But it ain't beautiful. If I lug 1,000 crosses into the box and one of them bounce off the defender's heads, it's not beautiful football. That's efficient football, though. It's efficient. It works. I'm getting the points. I'm getting the goals. But it's not good. If I'm scoring off of set pieces because a guy has not marked me, or the goalkeeper's falling over, it's effective. I'm making goals. But it ain't good football. It's not good to watch. It's not Brazil. It's not PSG. Last year, and I used the PSG game as a reference from last year. Everyone was saying, "Oh, we got to the semifinal. We didn't play great football up to the semifinal. Real Madrid was terrible. We scored 2 free kick goals, which I thought were beautiful. But our overall play wasn't that great. And I was at the first PSG match. We played awful. Wasn't great. So, yes, our football was effective. We beat Real Madrid. It was effective. It wasn't beautiful. It wasn't great. But we beat them. It was effective. Until it wasn't. And PSG played beautiful football. They got their one goal. They sat behind it away from home, as every team would do. And then at home, we went there and we tried it. And they still found a way. They played good football last season. We played effective football until it wasn't effective anymore. And that's just where we're at. That's just where it is. So when people talk about football and how the football looks, it's not, to me, it's not great. It's not it's not great football, but it's effective. We're still at the top of the table. We're still in the FA Cup. We're still in the Carabao Cup. We still got the Champions League to go. It's not great football. We're not playing good football. We're not playing beautiful football. But it's effective at the moment. And that's my bit. That's my bit on the football. It is effective at the moment. And right now, in February, going into March now, because we're over halfway through, that's all I can ask for. Effective football. But when it stops being effective because it's not good, what do you turn to? Who will you turn to? If we can't score now, and we're playing, we're playing the easier teams, or we're playing, the easier games, what happens against the harder teams? We saw what happened against the harder teams. We saw what happened against Liverpool. We saw what happened against United. We saw what happened against Villa. When effective football isn't effective and the football hasn't been great, you get those results. Man City historically, last 5 years, they've had effective football. They had great football. And they've won everything. Liverpool had great football and effective football. And they won everything. We've had effective football till it wasn't effective. But it ain't been great. And we haven't won anything. My last bit on the ammo check is going through our fixtures. Let me just pull them up. Our next fixtures and kind of overall thoughts. So I will do the 5-minute match preview, but I'm just thinking about our next fixtures. And we've got 2 more in February. So we have Wolves away and Tottenham away. Now, my thoughts on Wolves away, on paper, first versus last, it should be a cakewalk. However, Wolves have this thing. They have this moment to be giant killers. Right? Wolves are last. They going down. We knew Wolves were going down 2 months ago. They are in the championship. And that makes them dangerous. That makes them extremely dangerous. Because they got nothing to lose. If they come out at us, they have nothing to lose. They could stank out the place and try to get a scalp. What's bigger for them now? They know they're going down. So what can you do? We stop Arsenal from winning the championship. The Prem. We stop them from lifting the Prem title. That's what they have. That's their championship. That's their playoff. That's their big game. We stop Arsenal from winning the league. So it could be a cakewalk. We could go in there. We could wipe the floor with Wolves. Or Wolves could give us everything they have. They got nothing to lose. And a team with nothing to lose is a dangerous team, in my opinion. And it's away from home. I think we've been good away from home anyway. It's a late game on the Wednesday. Coming, so it's this Wednesday. Coming from this match, we've rotated. We should have fit enough players. It depends on what our manager is going to do. But that's a game I think we should win. But it's a bananas game. And then directly after that, we have the North London Derby. Now, North London Derby is always hard to pick, man. I always pick a win. But it's always hard to pick because we know that Spurs don't like us. We don't like Spurs. But we also know that Spurs will want to beat us. And they want 2 things, right? They're, for all intents and purposes, in the relegation battle. They are. So if we beat Spurs, it could be long for them. Do I think they'll get relegated? Of course not. But to the Spurs fan and the Spurs manager, it's sticky, bro. It's sticky if we beat them. On the flip side of that, if Tottenham beat us, just like Wolves, we're stopping you from winning the Prem. Doesn't matter. Not only are we stopping you from winning the Prem, or slowing you down from winning the Prem, we're solidifying our chance to stay in the Prem. So it's a big game for them. They're at home. They'll be up for it. And they have a manager in Tudor who's not really that great at long term. He's, to me, from what I was reading, he's kind of like Big Sam, Sean Dyche. Like, you need someone to keep you in the league. You come get these guys. You need someone to keep going after that. You get somebody else in. And I feel like that's who he is. And from what I was reading, he likes to play three at the back, which if he's playing three at the back, he's going to frustrate us. Because that's what teams have done. And if he chooses to sit back because he wants to take a point or 3 points, it could be frustrating. Do I think Tottenham have a lot of injuries as well? So I don't think they're going to come out at us regardless, because I just don't think that's a smart idea. But if this guy is worth his weight in gold, he's going to play like every team has played it, play a low block, try to hit us. It ain't like Tottenham been playing great football anyway. So I'm sure fans will be fine with frustrating, trying to hit us on a counter, getting a jammy goal, getting a set piece goal, and holding on for their life. I'm pretty sure they'll be all right with that. And those are 2 matches. I feel like the next 2 matches could determine how well our season goes. Because if we lose those 2 matches, if we don't win those 2 matches, it's tough. It's not like it gets easier after that. Because then we're home at Chelsea. They could be under a resurgence with Rossinier. We're away at Brighton. Brighton's our bogey team, as we know. Home at Everton should be a win. And then Wembley, the 23rd of March, we're playing Manchester City in the final. So February and March could tell us whether or not we're getting this league. My opinion, I think we are. And that's part of my delusion, I guess. I think we'll win it. And I just sat here and talked about managing people like, oh, you said the manager's not good enough for you to win it. Because I believe in the club. I believe in our players. I think we have the quality to win. And I think that all it takes is a little bit of magic. All it takes is a mistake from Man City. It might not happen. But I've been saying all year I think we're going to win. I think we're going to win a trophy. I want to say it's the Prem, but it's looking long for the Prem. I think we'll win the Carabao Cup. Because we don't lose at Wembley typically. But that's just hope. There's no evidence that I have that supports that. I mean, this is our first final since the FA Cup final. This is the first time we've gotten to play Manchester City since the FA Cup. That FA Cup. Not playing them like in a cup, but like playing them for something, because we played them in the semifinals in that FA Cup, and then we faced Chelsea. So yeah, it's the first time that we've made a final, and yeah, bro, like I want to win it, and I think we will win it, but that's just hope. It's just hoping. So yeah, and then I want to end on a positive note. On a positive note. So I like ending on a positive note. I like giving you a sandwich. On a positive note, we're still top of everything. On a positive note, we're through to the FA Cup. We will see who we play tomorrow. I'll probably do a short about that. On a positive note, we still have an opportunity to win everything. We still have an opportunity to leave this season with something. All is not lost. I know I've made it seem like, it might be doom and gloom. All is not lost. All isn't lost. But we have to see something different. We can't keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. We can't keep flocking the same players, expecting them to get over the line. We can't keep like for like subbing and hoping that something will change. We can't keep living like that, bro. We can't. So I will see you guys. Let's see what I got next. So what I want to do is I want to start doing the I wanted to start doing the ammo check in the middle of the week and then doing the Waffle House at the end of the week because that way you have a whole week to do things. But I'll keep it like this because Arsenal playing midweek, so I'll do the ammo check on the weekends, and then once we start going back to actual like playing weekends, then I'll do the ammo check in the middle, and then I'll do the Waffle House either Friday night or Saturday night because I like to be chill. I like to be chill. I like to waffle a little bit. But to any and everyone who came in here and left me a comment, anyone who came and left me a like, I appreciate it. I will see you guys on the next live stream, which will be the Waffle House. Hopefully, so we play on Wednesday, so I'll probably do it on Tuesday. So I'll do the Waffle House on Tuesday, and then I'll do this. This was supposed to be yesterday, but of course, Valentine's Day, lovers and friends, had to make sure that the missus was happy and taken care of, and yeah, can't be doing Arsenal. So I had to do it tonight, but it'll probably be on Saturday nights, where it'll be a nice little chill vibe. We'll talk about any and everything, and then the more people we get in, the more open conversations we'll have. The more comments, I try to read the comments. The more people come in, the less you'll hear me waffle about stuff. And yeah, the more we'll grow. So, as always, guys, y'all take it easy. Remember, like, share, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Good luck.